Yeah?
No.
Anyway, we'll talk about this now as well. Like, for example, growing up, we used to always go on family barbecues, family picnics. Everyone used to love being together. Everyone used to have a form of family and friendship. But now it's come to a point where, it's like it takes a certain amount of time for you to repeat an action in order for it to become a habit. They say 21 days, or there's a certain amount of days, right? Yeah. And imagine how long we were locked up during COVID. It was like, 200 something days? Was it in total?
I can't remember.
So it was many, many days.
Yeah.
And what happened was, I believe, it sort of reprogrammed everyone in such a way where they were now complete introverts that didn't want to blend with family and friends, and no one cares about anyone anymore.
Well, I know in the African American community, and in my experience, for us it was, I know that matriarch, that parental, that like we had the uncles that like organized those picnics or organized the cookouts, but as they get older, no one took the baton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like no one stepped up and really took and owned that responsibility of getting everyone together. Because we used to have like family reunions every year.
Yeah. There's not much of it now.
No, because the young people, or maybe the older people didn't delegate. It's kind of like if you have a business and you decide to retire, but you don't have anyone to hand it off to run it properly. So, or you hand it to the wrong person and he focuses on other things. And just slowly but surely, deteriorate.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest challenge sometimes. I think we as adults and getting older have to take on more responsibility.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Because we learn from our parents and our grandparents.
Yeah, and it's a cycle. We learn from like how they used to treat us and talk to us and act with us, and then we just keep evolving with it.
Yes.
Davey, we're live. Oh, we're live. Look at that. Lock and loaded.
Perfect.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today we've got a special guest, Orlando Green. If you want to tell me about yourself and your, what you do exactly and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I'm from Philly.
Eagles,
baby. Yeah. Get that shout out. EAGLES. Let's go. But I arrived in Australia like permanently in like 2007.
Yep.
Prior to coming to Australia, I was in advertising and marketing. So I used to do billboards. I was a creative director and doing commercials and copywriting.
Complete different shift in work.
Oh, completely. Cause
wow.
When I arrived in Australia, I was like, had my portfolio. Because I worked at Lockheed Martin, PricewaterhouseCoopers. I'm like, here's my portfolio. Let's go. Went down to St. Kilda Road, stopped at Saatchi & Gray's Advertising. They was like, nah, mate.
None of this, yeah.
Nah, we don't do you do your kind around here. I was like, what are you talking about? I work for 2 Fortune 100 companies.
Yeah.
Like, here's my portfolio. Like, I have a master's in digital design, a bachelor's in marketing, and associates in visual communications.
Wow.
So I'm like, why not? And I was unemployed in Australia for like 9 months.
Wow.
Couldn't find a job.
Did you find it hard because you were American? They were kind of pushing you away, or
African American?
Wow.
It's true. Back then, there wasn't many Africans in Australia.
Yeah, wow.
And when I first came in '96, it was like 0 Africans, and
wow.
it was funny because people would look at me weird and kind of avoid me. But when I started speaking, they go, "Oh, American! Hey, how you doing?" Totally switch.
Yeah.
So, but I couldn't find work.
9 months.
9 months.
That would have been challenging.
Oh, I've never been unemployed in my life.
Oh my God.
And now I couldn't find work. And I ended up going into aged care because they didn't recognize my degrees.
Wow.
So they're like, yeah, you have these 3 degrees from America, but
they mean nothing here.
They mean nothing here. Like, there's no proof. I'm like, here's my transcripts. They're like, nah. And so I just literally had to start, and I just had a daughter.
Oh.
So that's the reason I came to Australia.
Okay.
And I had not dough. Like, I was stacked dough because I was paid, but when I got to Australia, that money, the dollar was very strong.
Yeah.
But being unemployed for 9 months,
just ate away.
New future wife, new child, like it was all going on.
Everything was just coming down,
Yeah.
rolling.
You know, I had to buy a new car. I had to like do like all this stuff, get acclimated, and
And the dough started to go down.
started going down. So I'm like, I'll do this job. I'll do this job. I'll do this job. I did this thing he does like. So I started, you know, literally working. Well, I did work at Yellow Pages for a while.
Okay.
That was pretty cool, you know, and that was crazy because I kept going to all these interviews and I couldn't understand why they weren't hiring me.
Wow.
And this guy, I finally went to this one recruiter. He's like, mate, you can't go to the interview dressed like this.
How were you dressing? What was the dress code?
Like
Was
straight
it
gangster.
I think
the chain?
no, not that gangster. I was like suited.
Whoa.
Cufflinks,
Whoa.
you know, $500 suits because I worked in corporate America.
Yeah.
That's what you
Wow.
wore.
And they were kind of finding that odd, yeah?
But he had the chain.
In America, you interview for the job you want.
Wow, yeah.
So
I get what you mean.
you go to the job looking like $1 million because you want that $1 million job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm in the interview and the guy's like, mate, you dress better than me. I'm like, and what they got to do with me? Like, I'm trying to get a job. I don't, you know, I don't want to look like I need a job. I want to look like I can properly do the job.
Yeah.
He's like, can't do that here in Australia.
Wow.
He said, you need to take that suit back, go buy you like $100 suit.
No
And
cufflinks?
No cufflinks. And he was like, and when you sit, because you know, I'm at an interview like this.
Yeah.
Okay, shoot away.
Yeah.
He's like, nah, mate, you look too comfortable and casual, like you don't need
Wow.
a job. He's like, you need to be like,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. So I was going to all these interviews. Finally, I had an interview with Yellow Pages, and I walked up. And I was like, I ain't not even wearing a suit today. I'm just gonna wear. I think I wore a vest with a tie, just a little different.
Yeah.
I walked in the room. Everyone had black and blue suits on.
Oh.
And I'm like, I'm not gonna get this job. But I was like, whatever. And I parked illegally on the street. Not illegally, but in a meter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like 2 hours. So I get in there and the guy's like, we're gonna be here about 6 hours.
So everything's now stressing and climbing up.
Yeah. So I'm like, whatever, you know. And we had to take a PowerPoint test, a Word test, and an Excel test. So, which I knew all those because I taught them in school. When I was in art school, we learned them in previously.
Yeah.
So I'm taking this test, and I'm like, ooh, hey, go feed my meter. And the lady's like, if you leave, you can't come back and take the test.
Wow.
I was like, that's fine. So I knock out the test, boom. She's like, another test. And it keeps falling down, whatever, I have to feed the meter for the test. I'm like, test. She's like, you don't want this job, do you? I was like, because I got a ticket one time. Because in America, a parking ticket is like $10.
Yeah. No, he's more. He's $180. Yeah.
I got a ticket. I was like, this has got to be a joke.
Yeah.
$108 for a non-moving violation. They was like, yes. So I said I wasn't getting nothing out of those. So the last test, I'm like, I got to go feed my meter, man. I'm not getting a ticket. She's like, you want this job? I'm like, yeah. So at the end, she called her one in and did the test. She was like, you did fantastic on all your tests. I'm like, okay. She's like, you aren't excited? I was like, you see my resume? I've been doing this. Like, this is not complicated.
Got masters, got all these
and,
degrees.
And I got the job.
Wow. Beautiful.
And I was so surprised because I was like, I'm not going to get this job.
Yeah.
You know? And then
Started to pay off from there.
Yeah. And I learned heaps when I worked for the Yellow Pages. Because I'm dealing with Aussies now. So I'm learning the Aussieisms. I'm learning more about the culture. I'm ringing up people. Even like if you had a business, I'll ring you up and be like, hey, get your Yellow Pages. And the way Yellow Pages work is that they gave you the previous year ads, maybe like 1.1 million worth of ads.
Yeah.
And you had to bring back whatever you could. And if you brought back more money, you got more higher commission.
Okay.
And then they had all these crazy trips and stuff. But it was a great job. I learned heaps from a lot of people. Shout out to Lockie Doig. That's my man. We went for him because I've never asked him for money.
Yeah.
So I would write proposals up, 5,000, 10,000. And my man Lockie was like, yo, bruh. He's an Aussie guy.
Yeah.
He's like, you got to go in there, Mike. Get them by $20,000, $50,000 proposals, Mike. I was like, I don't know if I can do that. So one day I went out to the JB Hi-Fi and I wrote up a $50,000 proposal and they bought it.
Wow.
I came back into the room like, I'm done. I'm done for the day.
That's it.
and since then, I just, I learned how to sell because I wasn't a salesman. I was a marketer.
Wow.
So
and that's where you started to...
Yeah. And then eventually, they didn't want to put me in advertising. And I was like, I'm not a salesman. I'm a marketer. I'm an advertiser. They said, no, we can't do that. And I said, left that job.
That's it. Time to move on.
Yeah. And moved on to another job with another sales job, but it was paying 6 figures.
Wow.
And commission.
Oh.
But
now you're balling.
I was like, okay.
Now the dough's going to start stacking.
Correct. And they fired me in like 6 months. They're like, you're not hitting the targets. And no one was hitting targets. Because I was talking to, he said none of the salespeople they brought in has hit targets.
Wow. And then how did you kind of transition into the field that you're doing now?
Oh, so I didn't have a job.
Wow.
So
that 9 months.
No, this is after the 9 months.
Oh, okay.
So this is after I left. What was it? It was like it was called. I can't remember the name of the company.
They kind of fired you from that job.
Yeah. When you get them, if you get emails, they scan emails and make sure there's no viruses.
Oh, okay.
One of those.
Yep.
And so I ended up just going back. Once I became a citizen, which is Australia, once you're a citizen, education is like fantastic.
Yeah.
Because in America, once you get that first student loan, your interest starts that day.
Really?
Yeah. So if you get like a $20,000, well, back then it was like $30,000 loan, and that next day your interest started accruing.
Wow. How much the difference in education do you find in America and here? Difference. What's the difference in education you find in America and here?
Not much difference.
Yep.
The financial is the biggest.
Really?
Yeah, because here in Australia, you get the HEX and you don't got to pay it back unless you make $50,000, and they take it out of your income tax.
Okay.
So you don't ever see it.
In America, you got to kind of start straight away.
Oh, you got to start straight away. Most people that go to college as a freshman, you're 18, 19. I hope you're not working because I didn't work because I wasn't a very good student. Like, I didn't turn around at being an academic until art school. When I got my marketing degree, I barely graduated. And I went to an HBCU. Shout out Cheney U. See you.
My boys got all the shout outs.
Yeah. Well, that's HBCU. So, historically black college universities.
Yeah.
So I grew up predominantly around white people. And so I went to a predominantly black college.
Okay.
And that was in Philly. And that made me the man who I am today.
Wow. So kind of, it plays a big role where you grow up and the kind of environment you grow up, I grew up in the northern side and we were just always involved in madness, yelling and screaming and fighting and violence. And then I go towards the city side and it's more calm. People are saying, hey, who are you, this often kind of, we don't come from that place. So it's kind of, it's very important to the place you grow. You know what I mean? It either leads you towards violence or it leads you to suit and tie and a corporate job. So environment is a big role.
Huge. Because that's where you learn the model.
Yeah.
And also with your parents. That is huge. And that's one of the things that I experienced early on.
Yeah.
Because when I was going through a divorce with my first wife, my son was wilding out in school.
Wow.
Like, he was not a happy guy.
Wow.
Divorce
is scary.
Yeah.
People don't realize divorce, it hurts the mother and the father, but it hurts the child the most.
Yes.
Because they get lost on who they want to go with and who to love.
Yeah. And that's where I think that's a real challenge for individuals because I've never known divorce. Like, my parents didn't divorce. So I'm all new to this.
Wow.
So, but I knew the most important thing was that our children had to have an understanding.
Yeah.
So I kind of went to my ex and said, hey, we're going to have to disagree to agree.
Yeah.
Like, we have been in this relationship. But when it comes to these children, we have to be on the same page.
Yeah.
We have to. We got to put all that nonsense that we dislike about each other and come together.
That's a good way of thinking of it.
And that was the hardest day of my life, bro.
Wow.
When telling my kids that,
it's done.
My and dad is going separate ways. And it's a higher intervention. God was there.
Yeah.
Because we always played putt-putt. So I was like, told the ex, like, let's go put a putt-putt and Taliban because they love putt-putt.
How old was the child?
My daughter was 10.
10. Whoa.
And my son was 7. So my son was oblivious.
Yeah.
He didn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Until you
10, 11 is where the age where they kind of start, they were aware.
Oh, yeah, she was aware.
Yeah.
And she just started bawling. And the little Greek, my son was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
We're working on Veronica right now. You chill, brother. Go play.
Yeah.
You like go play. So
Do you feel like divorce, it has like a kind of a permanent effect?
it depends on how the parents handle it.
Okay.
I just want to say, it was divine intervention because it was a sad day, but then when we started playing putt-putt, the kids were getting holes in ones.
Wow.
And they were kind of like happy but sad. And
What's putt-putt? What's that? Is
miniature golf.
Mini golf.
Mini golf,
In America,
yeah.
we call it putt-putt, sorry. So it was miniature golf.
Yeah.
And she out of the 18 holes, she probably got like 9 holes in ones.
Yeah.
And it was so fortunate because it kind of changed the energy that day.
Smoothed it out.
And I was like, it
worked out.
Oh, it worked out.
Yeah, beautiful.
But my son, we had to do, during this time I was doing a bit of nursing. So I was learning about cognitive behaviour therapy.
I did read, you were a nurse for a bit.
Yeah.
Box Hill?
Yeah, Box Hill, Eastern House.
Yeah.
Shout out to Wellington House.
Yeah. How was life as a nurse? What did you feel like? What challenges were there?
Well, the first thing was going back to uni. I'm at uni. I'm like 40-something-year-old uni guy with 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds. And I'm the Black American. Like, the unis, there's no white Australians. It might have been like very few white people. They were all Asians, a lot of Arabics,
Middle Eastern.
Saudis.
I don't think they were Saudis. I think there's some Lebanese in there.
Yeah. Shout out to the Lebanese, the Saudis.
And a lot of Indians, a lot of Asians.
What year was this?
I don't know. I need to put my resume out. I think that was
2017, 15?
Yeah, 15, 14
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
Like 10, 15 years ago.
And how old were you then?
Probably in my 40s.
See, this is the problem. This is motivation because I hear a lot of people in their 29, 30, and they're like, I don't want to go to university. I'm too old. And like, you were in your 40s and you still went to university to study a degree.
Yeah.
Well, it's either you're going to be 45 with a degree or you're going to be 45 regardless. So you may as well do it anyway.
But what do you think, like, when we're in the 20s, like 20, 30 age, why do we kind of get afraid, man? What is it? Like,
I don't know. Some people think it's just too late, I guess. But it's never too late.
It's like an apprenticeship. People don't want to do an apprenticeship.
It's never too late. You can do anything you want to do, until you die. So.
Yeah. But back to what we were saying earlier, my whole belief is I'm here to love and learn.
Yeah. Love and learn. Wow.
And I just continue to learn because when you die, hopefully all you take with you is love and with your knowledge.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
So,
That's very powerful.
Because it's what you leave behind,
Yeah.
It's people around you want to be left behind with, or you want to leave, just positivity, happiness, be remembered as a person that's always got a smile on his face.
Yeah.
Rather than someone that's just constantly angry, constantly bringing negativity.
Yeah, you got to leave a legacy.
Exactly.
I like that, a legacy.
And I think what you said earlier, back to modeling the environment, you have to be conscious of that, because it's all right if that's your culture and you just talk loud.
Yeah.
It's just whether are the words negative.
Yeah.
You
It's
know
like
what
an
I mean?
aura, bringing an aura in, either you're negative or positive, and that plays a massive role. I've seen it. You can walk into an environment where everyone's going to have dinner. One person is negative, he can really have an effect on everyone else.
Exactly right.
You know what I mean? And if you have a positive aura and everyone's negative, you'll change everyone's vibe. So your environment is a massive role. It's in, and going back to nursing, how was it like? Was there challenges? What section did you work in, or was it just a general?
It wasn't that challenging. Like the thing challenge was the math.
Really?
Because you can't miss with the calculations.
Because the doses and
The
drugs.
doses and
So you would know all the detail of drugs, prescription drugs, huh?
Yeah. and you only have 2 chances to take this test and get a perfect.
Wow.
Or you got to resit the whole course again.
Wow.
So I took it the first time, and I missed one. And I was like, fuck, I can't afford it. I can't afford to take this class again. Like, I'm working full time as a PCW or something.
How long was the course?
I did 2 years.
Okay.
So I'm a registered nurse, but it's called an EN. It's a Div 2.
Okay.
So that's a 2-year program. There's a 4-year program, which is RN, which is called a Div 1 here in Australia. And the difference is that as a Div 1 and a Div 2, a Div 2 cannot do tracheotomy care. So if someone trachea's damaged and you can't do care, and you can't manage people.
Wow.
That's the only difference.
Okay.
And you can do everything else. You can give drugs, give injections, you can do IVs.
Everything, take out blood, everything.
Everything.
But you just can't, if they got a problem here.
Remember,
trachea.
It's when so the saliva doesn't build up.
Okay.
The saliva.
So you got to do extra study to do that.
Yeah, extra 2 years.
Extra 2 years.
And it's really around the management part.
Okay.
Because they're responsible.
Wow.
So if I'm working in the hospital, the RN, the Div 1 has to manage me.
Okay.
More or less. Take
Yeah.
more responsibility. And I was gonna do that, but I didn't want to go back to school. But I'm in school again now because I'm trying to get my bachelor's in counseling.
I seen it. Yeah, you were doing psychology as well. You become a psychologist from it.
But you don't have to have that to be a counselor. It's not by law.
What are the qualifications to be a counsellor?
Well, you have to graduate, and then you have to get the registration number, and you register it, and then you can go online and work at Better Health and all the ones online once you get that registration number.
In counselling, what do you specialise in? What's the?
I don't know if it's probably AOD.
Okay.
So my specialty is AOD because I'm an AOD practitioner. So I do a lot of work around alcohol and other drugs.
Ooh.
So
we're gonna have some good discussions on these stuff. You know.
I want to go back on the one thing.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think is very important in family is that dinner time.
Yeah.
You know, when I was raised, we had dinner every day together at dinner time. All my siblings, father and mother,
dinner
time, everything off, eat. And
it's not like that now.
No, well, when I first came here with my ex-wife, I was like, "This is what we do." She's like, "What?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah."
So
let's have the TV on. She wanted the
involved.
TV on. I was like, "No." We had a huge argument at that, but finally I said, "We don't have the TV on." And to this day, like my children, my family, we sit down and we have dinner together and we go through the day.
So important.
Beautiful.
Heaps.
Yeah.
That's when you find out what they're dealing with, and you have to be vulnerable as a parent also. You know, sometimes you can't have that stoic, like I got everything perfect.
Yeah, no.
You got to say I got everything correct, but I'm working through it. But these are the strategies and tools that I'm using, so that your kids can see like, oh, okay, I know you're not perfect, and I see you have tools and strategies. Saying these are things I'm teaching you, so when you become an adult, you can work through them and not say, because I don't allow my kids to use the word anxiety. You know, you have to express yourself for what you're experiencing.
Do you feel like when they use that word anxiety, it starts to build up in their mind?
Exactly.
And they kind of believe. I remember a while back when I was dealing with grief about 10 years ago, I seen a lady, she was a counsellor while I was in school, and she was telling me, she goes, your mind, it starts to get used to what you think. And I was like, what do you mean by that? She goes, if you tell your mind that you're depressed, it starts to memorize that. And then every time you're in a sad moment, I'm depressed. I got anxiety. I'm depressed. And then it just builds up and it gets worse.
Subconsciousness.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And ever since then, I've eliminated that thought. You know what I mean? If I'm sad, I'm just sad because it's human nature.
Yes.
So I kind of like how you teach them to not use the word anxiety. It's very important.
The brain is actually very, very powerful in what you think and what you say. That's why, when you're spelling, that's why they say spelling, because it's the spell that you create upon yourself.
Whoa.
Okay.
Hence why I always say you never talk negatively about yourself or talk down upon yourself.
Yeah.
Because your subconscious just soaks it all in. And you feel that way.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's powerful, bro.
Yeah. And stay conscious and intentional on that, because if you have nieces and nephews and they start talking like that, just pull them up and be like, hey, don't say I don't do that well. Or don't say I can't do that. Just say you don't do it well.
Yeah.
And how you can improve on it.
Yeah.
It's the wording.
Yeah, it's wording. And it starts when young, man. Like I'm telling you, bro, when these kids are young, you have to be on them. on them every day.
Yeah.
You know, but you have to be on them with reassurance and positivity and love.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just that, but you have to stay on them because one thing, once they get to high school, you haven't taught your kids
It's a problem.
self-respect
Yeah,
and
it's a problem.
self-esteem and how to defend themselves.
Because now they have friends and now they start talking
Influence.
about
Exactly.
things and they start learning and they bring these ideas home.
Yeah.
And their brain is like a sponge, so it's just taking it all in, you know?
Yeah.
So you need to fill that sponge.
I had to explain to them, this is what goes on in our house. Your mates and friends, they got stuff different in their house.
Yeah.
So don't think you can do what they in their house. Like, and it's a learning experience. And I learned that early on because I had a friend back in the day, paid. This dude was paid. His parents had to be a millionaire.
Wow.
I went to his house one time. He had a lake. He had a dog kennel. He had his own little area to make his own ammunition. He had guns. We were shooting 12-gauge shotguns out his bedroom, right? And he's just wilding out. And I'm like, and his mom was like, hey, what do you guys want for dinner? I'm like, what do I want for dinner? I want whatever y'all having. She's like, no, what do you want?
Wow. They're just wealthy. They got money.
Yeah, he was like, I want spaghetti.
Oh my
I want
He
hamburgers.
was a white boy.
Yeah. Joey Mancuso, wherever he
Shout
is.
out.
This guy was paid.
Loaded.
Yeah, he had ATVs, like everything. This kid, and he was just acting wow.
Do you feel like that has an effect it has an effect on children when they're rich young and they get everything they need?
I haven't met many rich people, so I don't know. Like this guy, we were like sixth grade. You know, he was wilding out. You know,
He's 6th grade and he's old, but that's pretty wild.
hey, wow, shooting guns in sixth grade out the window, bro.
I don't remember having anything like that. I remember getting $10 for my birthday. What'd you get for your birthday?
I don't even know. But you know what? I don't want to sound ungrateful, but I mean, I was spoiled also, you know, growing up.
His dad's a great man.
But it was
Well
just,
done.
you know, like, you know, help with this and help with that. But I feel like that may have also interfered with my own growth.
How so?
Because it's like, you know, you're just so comfortable growing up, getting what you need, the help you need. But sometimes you need to just struggle alone. You know what I mean? In order to grow, I believe. But there's also a balance. Like, I mean, you know, you don't look after your kids up until a certain age. You do whatever you can as a father or a mother. But it's when they get to a certain age, I believe you need to sort of let them fly. You know?
What age would you say, man?
Well, bro, honestly, my father helped me. I'm 28 now. My father helped me. He's always, even now, like he's still helping me. You know what I mean? So you help your children all the time, but it's like, you know, just always giving them what they want. I don't think
It's not a good idea.
It's not a good idea.
What's your
You know,
thoughts on that?
constantly just what they
Where you're
want,
kind
what
of
they
giving
want.
them everything they need. Do you feel like that spoils them too much? It makes them not appreciate, or
Well,
because I feel like
Not necessarily not appreciate. I still appreciate, but it's just like, I don't know.
I get what you mean.
You know what I mean.
I've seen it with certain people where they're given everything and then they kind of grow up to be ungrateful, would you say?
Yeah, like, it's just
They don't
maybe they don't appreciate the hard work.
Yeah.
You know?
yeah, I think that's the parent's responsibility.
Yeah.
I think as a parent, you have to instill your values and your beliefs in your child. So if you're instilling the proper values, integrity, respect, you know, appreciation, I think most children will grow up with those values.
Okay.
It's that sometimes I think, from my experience, when kids don't have that foundation about what their family values are, I think that's where it's the real challenge. You know what I mean? Because if you, like you said, like if you know your family values and the core values, and that's what you believe in, I don't think that child's gonna grow up spoiled. They're gonna know their parents worked hard, mom had a role and responsibility, dad had their role and responsibilities. We have a cohesive unit. Each person knows what's important in life and what we need to accomplish. And we're gonna communicate that and we're gonna show that. You know what I mean? It's one of the things where when I was going through my first divorce, I just gotta get away. Because I don't want my children to grow up and think this is what love looks like. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I want my children to see that.
Plant that image in their
playing
mind.
with your partner, hugging your partner, snuggling, like all that stuff that's going to help them know what a healthy relationship looks like.
Wow.
Because if most people say, I'm going to stay together for the kids, I don't think that's helpful because you're not teaching them how to love.
Yeah,
I wanna touch on
you're
that.
doing more harm to them than good, because it's like, you know, like you said, you're teaching them what love is not, you know,
Yeah.
what it shouldn't be. affection.
I want to add on to what he was saying. A lot of people say this. They're going for a divorce and they're taking parts, but then the father would say or the mother would say, I want to stick around for the children. So you're actually causing more harm that way because there's toxic environment.
Long term.
Yeah. Oh, if it's toxic, it's definitely.
Yeah.
It's definitely not.
I've heard it by a lot of people that were going for divorce. They're like, but I got children. I don't want to break their hearts. But then you're toxic. You and your wife are constantly fighting.
Yeah, and that child is always seeing aggression.
Yeah.
Hatred, rather than seeing love. Eventually that child will move on and get over it. You get over
Maybe.
it. Maybe.
Because they model.
Yeah.
I mean, kids are very observant.
Yeah.
Like super duper observant.
Yeah.
They don't really care about what you say.
Yeah.
They care about what you do.
Yeah.
I was watching a video in the morning today. They experimented. They were trying to teach that the scientists were talking about people are not born with fear, and I was like, this is a bit weird. So then I looked at the experiment they were doing, and in the experiment they had babies, and around the babies they had snakes, live snakes, and the babies were grabbing the snakes, biting them, and playing with them, and it proved to you that the babies they don't have that fear there. It's evolved into having fear and grown into fear.
But I also believe that comes from understanding, because they don't understand the threat.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
They don't understand the threat.
Wow.
Because they don't know what a snake is. They don't know the harm the snake can do to them.
Wow.
So before the fear comes in, it's understanding the situation.
Do you like fear?
I think it has its purpose.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like it, but I think it has a purpose.
I used to use it when I was boxing, and I do a lot of boxing, and I was fighting and sparring. I used to use fear to my advantage. It was like a fire for me. In order to be this monster in the ring, I had to have this fear, because when your fear kicks in, it makes your mind clogs up and it goes everywhere. And it used to work for me. Fear used to work for me. Fear's like fire.
What did you fear?
Being in the ring.
Being in the ring, facing my opponent, not afraid of him, but afraid of failing.
Yes.
Failure, you know?
Now, like in that sense, I think fear, that's a healthy fear.
Being embarrassed. And I had to learn to just be a monster every time I entered the ring. But then that became a problem because I didn't know when to switch off. That Ahmed, that version of Ahmed. So I would bring that Ahmed into another environment. It would be around my friends.
Before I put him in line.
He put me away. He gave me a Baltimore punch.
Nice. And they were friends before.
100%. But he's a witness to my evolving anger, man.
Yeah.
How bad was it, man?
No, it was, yeah.
I had a bad problem with anger, man. Wild. It was scary. And then I realised it was having a lot of effect on my friends. Around my friends. Whose phone's that? Is it yours, Rams?
No.
Whose phone's that? I don't know whose phone that is.
Mine's over
Oh, it's okay.
That's all right.
I realised that I was having a lot of effect on my friends, and I started to lose friends. How many times we fight with each other because of anger? And then I realised I need to calm down on anger. Anger's not good. It's like a fire. A fire can cook, keep you warm, but it can burn you. So I needed to step away from it a little bit. And
Keep you warm enough, but also not burn you.
Yeah, 100%. But what's your opinion on fear?
one second.
Yeah.
How did you overcome that?
Yeah, you know what? I'm witness to it, and I can vouch for it. Like, I did start to see changes in Ahmed. The way he would deal with situations. Like, now he was telling us to calm down.
Yeah.
Shout out to my boy Ahmed.
It was weird, man. Do you need your phone?
I just want to put it on the floor.
Oh, okay. He'll
just
take
put it
care
on
of
the
it.
floor.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
want
yeah. It was a wild journey. To be honest, an incident happened in my family. Someone ended up in hospital, really sick, and I think that is what humbled me and made me get rid of anger.
Wow.
It was wild because what happened is I had to spend a certain amount of time in hospital with this person, and seeing the sick around me, the dying people around me, because we were in intensive care. So seeing all the people dying and it just humbled me. And it's just like, why are you always angry? And I was reading a lot there. And then I learned that anger has been a problem in my life now. You know what I mean? My friends couldn't talk to me. You know, it was scary. It was scary anger.
Yeah.
You know?
Once,
You can say it.
I'll give an example. Once we're in the backyard, Ahmad's backyard, we used to have a gym set up there.
No, talk about the one inside the house with the remote. That was better.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that one?
Because of the movie?
Yeah.
Ahmad wants to open a movie. I'm like, nah, I'm going to pick the movie. And I'm like, you know what? Pick the movie. I'm like, fuck it. Whatever you want to do.
He grabbed the control and he kind of threw it.
I threw it at him, yeah? He grabbed the knife. He goes, I'm going to stab my leg with this knife. Just cooked.
Yeah. That was the rage that I had.
And I feel like this guy's not normal.
Yeah. And that was the anger that I had, Orlando. It was haunting me. I wasn't enjoying it no more. And that's when I kind of, I needed to fix this problem that I had because it was destroying me. It was destroying around my family. I was always angry. You couldn't approach me. And then I learned that this needs to stop. And then that's why I kind of, someone went to hospital, and that period of time changed a lot in my life, man. Seeing the sick people around me, it was wild.
Wow.
It was a big effect.
Did you go back to boxing?
Yeah, I still train now consistently, but it's more of a maintenance. I'm not seeking that fighting at the moment because I'm afraid of that Ahmed. I don't want that Ahmed no more.
Okay, good. Real talk.
I don't like it.
Like
I couldn't
it's
snap.
It's like a Tyson, you know?
Yeah,
You know when
I
Tyson...
It was bad. He seen me. He used to spar with me.
You spar with him?
Yeah, I did. I would catch him nice couple of times. It was good though. It was just, you know, more to release, you know, what we've got in our day-to-day lives, you know, in the ring with our friends. You know, no ego, no, none of that pride or arrogance. You just go in and, you know, have fun.
It was good. I enjoyed it. And then I realised...
We used to call it, what was it?
The dungeon.
The dungeon.
It was called the dungeon. There was a lot of blood noses, a lot of bruises.
Yeah, dog war.
Yeah, it was dog war.
Good, but
We used to have a Friday night called dog war.
yeah, Friday night special.
How many you got?
Oh, we used to have 10 people come in and spar.
Yeah,
Everyone's just
one by one. Everyone's
violence was at its peak.
I want to spar you. Let's go. Yeah, it was mad.
Yeah, put your gloves on, jump in the ring, and it was like a brotherhood, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, and I started that gym during COVID because all the gyms closed, and people were going crazy and psychotic. And then I was like, I need to open a gym, so I opened the gym at home in the backyard, and everyone just started coming in.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
I've got some good clips. I've got some good
Yeah,
videos.
video.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, well done.
Yeah.
Like you saw a need, and
People
and
gone
you
crazy.
provided it. You know, you probably don't. You know,
They were like
just imagine how
the
people
neighbors
helping.
and stuff, you know, like the neighbors and their kids and stuff. The neighbor would bring his child over, you know, can you train him as well? So it would be like, you know, Ahmed's opened up like a small area in his backyard, for example. It's got all and this is everything that's needed. And, you know, people would bring their kids over and I would also look after them as well. So it became like a just, you know,
Yeah, that's
it was good, like a
it was good.
community.
Yeah, that's lovely, man.
It was a tough time, man. COVID. I want to talk to you about COVID and the mental health of COVID.
Sorry to cut you off. Even the cops came during COVID.
Yeah.
We were all in the backyard boxing, training. We started running everywhere, hiding in the Ahmad's backyard. Put it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Because someone put a complaint through saying, you know, there's a lot of people at this house and shit like that.
Yeah. It was a
So
wild
they
time. The cops came and we were jumping fences to the neighbours.
Just so we could train.
Yeah.
You know?
We just wanted to train, man. Being at home, locked away, was a prison. It was dangerous. I still have the permanent effect till now. You? It was a bad time.
Wow.
COVID was, they handled that in a very wrong way.
Yeah, well, I would say they handled it. I'm kind of on the fence about it.
Yeah.
Because I lived in the East. And in the East, we were walking and doing everything like the police, because in Camberwell and those areas, police don't really come around.
Yeah.
So, and plus I was a nurse at that time, so I can go anywhere I wanted.
Yeah.
But Camberwell, no police. I don't remember seeing any police. Like people walking their dogs, going to parks.
Nah, we didn't have that.
I know, because even down in the commission flats, 5-0 was going crazy.
Yeah. No, the police were on a serious power trip here. They would just harass you constantly. You know, it's like, I just need to go to Coles to get some stuff while you live in the house. And it created a toxic environment.
Yeah, they did research on that. They did a report on it. And the police, you know, it came out that the police were, you said, discriminating against the lower economic locations.
Yeah.
Because, and that was the one that couldn't afford the fines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Definitely.
so they're going through more challenges because they're in high rises and they really can't get out the parks. Whereas people in the suburbs have parks and can walk around and still keep distances, And so the report came out saying that the police were a bit, I can't remember the exact terminology, but that the police were, I want to say like heavy-handed in the lower income areas, especially in the commission flats, because a lot of those.
I felt they were, man.
Yeah, even that movie, it's about a prison and prison guards. It's The Project.
Oh yes,
And then
the experiment movie.
they attain certain people like a prison guard role. And then they've got, for example, 10 or 15 or 20 prisoners. But they're just playing a role. They're just doing a project.
Okay.
David, can you check that for me?
Oh, that's a psychology experiment.
Yeah. And then what happens...
The prison
there's
experiment.
A movie,
David, please.
Banco experiment, some shit like that. And then what happens
Prison
is...
experiment movie, please.
And then what happens is eventually they really do take that
The
power
Stanford.
trip.
That's the one.
The Stanford experiment.
That's the one. Excellent movie.
Even that, bro,
wow.
perfect example.
That's the one.
Yeah,
where the prisoners started, so they had the role of being police officers, and then you could see the power trip and the violence they started in. What drives us to that, Orlando? What, as people, why do we, when we have power, we start to overlook people?
It's the ego, brother.
The ego.
I don't know. I don't really know. I could really say that for me, it's your upbringing.
Well,
to me, it all comes back to your parents. You know what I mean? Because, what's that Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
So it's a matter that you choosing not to use that power appropriately. When if you did use it appropriately, you'll be in a much better place. And I guess the question is, why do individuals want to use the power incorrectly? You know what I mean? And I think if you're in good heart and nature and you want to see the better in people, you will use that. It's kind of like our politicians. Like, they have the power to do right. Why don't they do it?
Wow. That's a good way of thinking.
You know what I mean? Because, just imagine if you have power now and if you have power when you were angry.
It's two different things.
It's two different things.
Whoa. Yeah.
It is.
Completely different things. Going back to, the upbringing, I want to touch on about childhood trauma. This is a very, very important one. A lot of us were brought up in, I know a lot of people that were brought up in a bad environment. For example, my neighbours, I've been living in the same property for 20 years. I seen the children grow from the ages of 5 to the ages they are now. So they were my backdoor neighbours. Their dad's a severe alcoholic, and every day I used to hear him yell, hit him, scream at him, crazy trauma. And now they're at ages of 16, 17, and I see him at the front, and it really breaks my heart because I've seen these children from beautiful angels. Now they're smoking, now they're drinking, now they're fighting, now they look at me like I'm some criminal, and it teaches me, look at the upbringing, look at the environment that we're in, and look what it set them to, bro. Bro, you can't even talk to them now. I remember growing up, I used to give them lollies and chips, and now they're swearing at me, now they're giving their fingers, and every single day they're fighting and arguing, every day with their dad. He's always bashing them, and
Let's get them.
Yeah. Spit it up, my boy. Let's get it.
And that goes back to what you're saying, that modeling.
Wow.
You know what I mean? They're modeling.
Yeah. So I want to touch base on the childhood trauma and how does it begin in the process and stuff, and from what you've experienced and seen.
Well, a lot of that, it's like that modeling, it's especially around alcohol, because in Australia, alcohol, that culture is crazy. When I first came here, I was mesmerized by how much alcohol people drank, because we don't drink like that in America. Even at work.
Really?
I was in sales. He would literally bring up slabs, cases of beers, and scotch and spirits, at 3:00 on Friday.
Whoa.
Yeah,
While
you've got
still
customers giving it to
David, can I check the
tradesmen
statistics
now.
of alcohol, please?
You've got customers giving
In
it
Australia.
to their tradies. For
Yeah.
example, a plumber's doing work at
Yeah.
a customer
And that's a huge
client's house.
problem.
It's like, well, Booge, would you like a beer? Because it's such a norm.
Yeah, it's normalized here.
This is a part of the society. And see,
Yeah.
when we go to talk about morals and values, even cultures,
Whoa.
even nationalities. You know, it's just
72% compared to America, 56%.
Yeah.
Holy.
Yeah.
I never ever thought of it that in Australia we drink more alcohol than USA.
And it costs more.
Really?
Bruh, a bottle of scotch here is what, $80, $70? In America, it's like 30.
Whoa.
You know, but we have other issues because our substances are cheaper
Yeah.
than here.
There's drugs is there on a whole different level in America.
Yeah. So, but when that alcoholism, and here in Australia, like they need to change that alcohol and drinking age. That's that low.
Bro, you think they care? You think they care? As long as it brings in the money, no problem.
But that goes back to power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you have the power to say drinking age could be 21.
Yeah.
Do you think
But-
you should be 21?
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, 18 's
So
too
look
young.
at that. Look at the difference.
Yeah, 18 is very young. You're not even mature enough to decide whether
Yeah.
you want to drink or not.
Yeah.
And then when you start at 18, before you know it's become a habit by the time you're 22, 23.
My daughter's 18 in high school. So she could literally drink after school if she wanted to. Or before school. Because it's legal.
Right. Just because you can drive at 18 doesn't
It's
mean
so
you should
dangerous.
be able to drink at 18.
I personally don't drink and I don't like drinking. I feel like it's how do you know when you're in a problem with alcohol? Like you're an addict now.
And this is also you can use for substances. I feel when it starts affecting your work, your relationships, your self-care, and how people are looking at you, and also your finances. You know, those are the things that's going to tell you if you are addicted. You know, now if you can keep all those things well and still use, then you're like a functioning addict or a functioning user.
A functioning addict.
Yeah, people don't like to use that term, but in the industry, but I think it's legit because people use substances. I remember, I ain't gonna say his name, but I remember when I was working at Lockheed Martin, and there's this upper manager who I was pretty cool with, and after work we would go shoot some pool before we headed back into the city, and he got very comfortable with me. And I'm like, bruh, he's like, what you doing today? I said, I'm going to probably go to the city, hang out with my boys, go check out the club. I'm like, what you going to do? He's like, I'm going to go get some crack. I said, you a crackhead? Just like that. Now, this guy is making six figures, responsible for about 18 people.
Whoa.
And I was like, are you serious or are you joking? He's like, I'm serious, bruh. I'm going to go in the city, get some crack, go home and chill.
Whoa.
I like, you that comfortable with me? I know I'm getting a raise now.
You a crackhead.
Yeah. But
and how's he now?
I don't know. But he was fine. Like, never, ever. He's like, I don't use during the week. He's only used on the weekends.
See, that's discipline as well.
Yeah, that is discipline.
See, for me, I feel like it always, when you do substance, like I feel like some people they kind of explain that they can maintain it, but I feel like it just overpowers you, man.
Certain people, most people, they say it will overpower. A very, very small minority may say, you know, no, I pick the days I want to do it.
Yeah.
It's
Whoa! Australia's substance is 2.7 compared to America.
Wow. I'm surprised at that.
That is crazy.
IV.
What?
That's
Well, there are a lot of heroin and a lot of ice users that use IV here in Australia.
Whoa.
You know, and that's another thing. Like, if you smoking ice or smoking heroin, once you move to that injection, the IV, that's when you know you got problems. Because sometimes you can just smoke and be cool. Yeah. But then when you try to say, I need a, you know, because you're always chasing that bigger, better high. And injecting is always going to give you a bigger, better high. Yeah. But it's going to also be more detrimental to your health.
I feel like as a community and, you know, the people we're all surrounded by, I feel like smoking is probably that zone.
Which smoking? Just normal cigarettes?
No. Smoking, ice smoking,
yeah.
heroin. That is like, you know, a very, very dark area. Rather than, for example, if people are snorting it, it's like, okay, you can do that here and there maybe, you know, until it becomes an addiction where you're doing it very, very regularly.
How do you...
But yeah, you know, you said, for example, it's really serious when you start injecting it.
Yes.
For me, for example, if I was to think of it, it's like it's really, really serious if you start smoking it. You know,
especially ice.
Yeah, because you've been around, you know, a lot of youth and, you know, people that are troubled, you would obviously know the severity of it.
Yeah. You know, sometimes with young people, it's really hard to get an understanding because, you have to really build a rapport with young people and really get an understanding that they can trust you and not feel criminalized or something bad's going to happen to them by having that conversation. And one of the things I like to think, I can build rapport quite quickly with young people and get an understanding that, I'm not going to, snitch on you. You know what I mean? I'm here to help you. A lot of times when I speak with young people, it's like, I want to focus on your strengths and do like strength-based theories and focus on what you do well. I don't want to talk about that negative stuff. I don't want to talk about all your offending and your substance use. If we can focus on what you do well, I feel that other stuff is going to subside.
I like how you approach that. It's very interesting. You're not coming to them directly and you're trying to show them that, you're kind of creating strategies, which is very interesting.
Yeah, because as a young person, I think, I believe they just want to be heard. And a lot of young people that aren't in those situations, no one's listening to them.
Does that go back to childhood, not being listened? See? It goes back to the childhood because, going to your dad and you want to talk to him about something, but I'm busy. Yeah. Or you're too afraid to approach your father about...
And you feel neglected.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't feel worthy. It's that feeling like you're not enough, which is really big in individuals that do go to counseling. They just feel like they're not enough because no one's have said you are enough. And sometimes that's a lot in relationships too. Like girlfriends don't feel like their partners think they're enough. Like, you want more of me? You want me to do more? It's like, no, I love you just like this.
Wow.
As if you can honestly say that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can say, I do have expectations of you. You know what I mean? I do have, I do feel like you are able to have, you're more, like you can do more. And one of the things I always found that I really love about my wife is that she's ambitious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She won't settle. Like she'll have a fantastic job volunteering. I can do something else. I can help the community.
She's always looking for something else.
Yeah, and that, to me, that's attractive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
just drive.
You're not
constant drive.
Yeah, you're not focusing on me. Like you focusing on the community. You focusing on yourself. You're focusing on helping people.
And that also pushes you.
Yes. Yes.
It's
without even mentioning anything to you, that action, just spark something inside of you to also perform at that level.
Yeah.
It's just another drive, bro. Just energy attracts energy,
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what young people need, because they don't feel like, I feel and believe that they're not good enough. Society is expecting too much of them, so therefore
they get stuck.
Why should I do anything? It's like when you ask a young person, what do you want to do? I don't know.
Yeah.
Ooh, that burns me up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'll tell you what to do. I want to do that. Well, you just said you didn't know what you would do.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what to do. I want to, do something then. Do something. Like, what is it? And I think as a parent, you have to be able to see what you think your child is doing well. Like when they're in school, is it math? Is it English? Is it science? And then feed that. You know what I mean?
It.
Just keep feeding you until you find out what that passion is. And it could change. Like right now, my son plays basketball. He's pretty good at it. I'm like, if you don't want to play basketball, that's cool too.
Yeah.
But you're going to do something. Like if it's not basketball, what is it going to be? And I don't know if parents are like saying that. Like you just can't sit around and be on your phone all day. You know what I mean? Remember, we was kids. Like,
hey, I got carried away. I was like, yeah, when we were kids.
We were outside. Outside, bro. Like you didn't want to be inside.
Yeah. Even us. Like I was growing up in my 12, 13, 14 to the age of 18. Man, we were out every single day.
Yeah.
We were catching buses and trains and
the days felt long.
Yeah.
Now it's just flying.
Now it's just like go home, turn on the box.
It's just you're a robot,
You know what I mean?
Just work,
and then
go home, eat.
That's what society wants.
You go on the train.
That's the system.
Everyone.
That's the system. The system is also created in such a way where like cost of living is so high, forces both man and woman, husband and wife, to also contribute. But the the foundation of a home is the man works and provides for his family while the woman looks after the kids and takes care of her family and makes the house a home.
Yes.
You know? But now we live in such a time where it's not enough for just a man. It's not, because it's just so hard now to get by, you know? So that, I believe, also like puts cracks into the foundation of a relationship, you know, and a marriage and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll give you a little pushback on that, because I feel sometimes we're a very materialistic culture.
Of course, social media.
And we have to realize what's important. You know, sometimes having 2 cars may not be the best for that family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe if you want your parent or you want your spouse to stay home from work, it's not going to look like us going on holiday every year. You know what I mean? It's not going to look like us eating out dinner once a week. Like, what are you willing to sacrifice to have that culture of home and your partner being able to take care of your children and focus on that space? You know, or vice versa. Maybe she the breadwinner and your ass stay home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I don't know. Because I don't know. Statistically, men aren't going to college like women. Well, I'm one more stats in America, but a lot more women are going to university and getting stats.
Wow. So
than men.
Women are getting more education than men.
Yeah. And these women are like, oh, I need a man that's making this much money. And the guy's like, I'm a tradie, or I'm an entrepreneur, or I just got a regular factory job, but I'm a good man. I can, and that's why the African Americans and women. That's why there are not many marriages, because it's I feel, for me, I believe it's racism. That's what the system created. Putting black men in jail, putting harassing them, and at the same time making it more difficult for them to get employed.
Wow.
Only because I feel sometimes that in America they don't want black men in positions of power.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I believe,
They want them always at a constant disadvantage.
100%. Even though it's not like it was back in the days, it's still lingering on.
Yeah.
Even if it's not spoken of, it still echoes.
Yeah. Even because we had a thing in America called the glass ceiling. You ever heard of that term?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah. Well, the glass ceiling is where you work in a corporate environment, and the glass ceiling where you can look up and see everybody working, but you're like lower management and the peons below. And if you looked up, you never saw people of color. Like here in Australia, like if you look at the upper management, there's not many people of color.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, I know.
And there's not many women either.
That's wild.
And that's what they call the glass ceiling, because you can see the people up top doing all the work.
But you can't see the colours.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Australia. They always say they're a multicultural society. And I say, yes, you are a multicultural society when it comes to the people here. But when you look at the media,
it's not.
TV, newspapers,
Wow.
Yeah,
none of that.
so true.
We got ABC maybe that may have some people of color on there. And you got the one Indian dude from, I don't know if he's still on there. I don't watch TV anymore. But it's very few people of color on Australian news. The 4 channels.
Never thought of it that way, bro, to be honest. It's a multicultural thing, but it's not.
It's only multicultural to house everyone. Or even then it's not a glass ceiling. I'd say it's a glass road, because it's like you've got a certain nationality and a certain background, and people of different countries and backgrounds or whatever in one area, and then you've got another one in another area. So it's not. It's like upper class, lower class. Right. It is. And I feel like there used to be an upper class, middle class, lower class, but now that middle class is gone, and now it's just upper class or lower class.
Right. Yeah. Well, the middle class has to exist because they pay the most taxes.
Yeah. I don't even know if they pay taxes.
The one thing that really freaked me out during COVID, it was that if you were on Centrelink, they gave you more money. Oh. You remember that?
Yeah.
I was like, how you going to give people more money for doing nothing?
Yeah.
Wow. I couldn't fathom. My people in America was like, they get money? They get that much money? I was like,
decent amount as well.
But they knew how to get it back.
Yeah.
Back from us.
So during COVID, for example, if you were to... we've done it how many times? We're just playing games, making money. And I started loving it.
Stacking that dough.
Yeah, bro. Like, they used to pay you, I don't know, maybe $700 just, for having COVID. Or $800 just for having COVID. And you could do it over and over and over again. But it was just pick different dates. But then it got to a point, before it got to a point, it would say, this is going to be tax deductible, like they were going to, make it back on you. So it was like they were literally handing money out to eventually get it back anyway.
Oh.
I'm not paying it back. But you know what I mean? I owe like 30,000 in hex, bro. I don't pay, So come find me.
Hey, no, I like that hex because, once you start making some serious dough, they'll be coming for you.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, they're coming.
Yeah, no. When you're a full timer, that hasn't been me because I've always.
What did you
I'm
study?
self-employed, but when you're working with someone and you're on the books, they take a certain percentage. They take a certain cut. But because I was self-employed, I didn't have to.
What did you study in university?
I done urban and regional planning at RMIT.
Wow,
nice.
And then I think I done that for a year, and then I done building construction. And then I left there, and then I went to Latrobe to do business, what Frankie's doing. But then while I was doing business, they were teaching me like sustainability, and I was like, what's that got to do with business, And then I just ended up leaving. Like I struggled to finish some tasks that I begin, I've got like, I reckon minor ADHD.
He said minor.
Definitely.
So I didn't finish, and then I just opened my own business and just been a hustler, bro.
Hey, that's what's up. I mean, that's when I first arrived. Like that's the way to go in Australia. Entrepreneurship, and that's for young people. If you don't want to go to uni, I get it. You don't want to be a tradie, I get it. Yeah. But you need to do something. So maybe teach them entrepreneurship and say whatever your passion is, go get it legally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because every drug dealer is an entrepreneur. They just have the wrong product.
Yeah.
People that are watching,
exactly.
You're hearing the man talk, the legend. Make sure you go out there and make some money, make some dough, but the right way.
Yes.
Business, trading, creating ideas. You have to do something. You have to. You can't just sit at home and play video games and watch television.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's too scary, man. That's too scary.
Yeah.
People don't understand.
For disaster.
Well, the scary thing is that here in Australia, you can do that.
Wow.
You can.
In America, you can't.
You can't.
You're not getting you're not gonna get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Sorry, it's not gonna happen.
And that's why I feel like they turn to drug dealing in America.
Yeah.
And it's so like drug dealing game there is wild.
Yeah.
It's wild, man. It's ridiculous. You got all these youth and they're from the O Block and they're real gangsters. Like I was watching a movie a couple of days ago, Paid in Full.
Oh yeah.
That's an OG, And then one of my friends was like, he's like, do you reckon this is real? I'm like, man, this stuff is real. This lifestyle is real. You're from America. How real is this lifestyle?
Once again, I didn't grow up in that space.
Yeah, you grew up
luckily.
My parents would not. No, they would not have that. They,
From what I see,
and even like in that show, you didn't see any parents.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If they did have parents, they were poor, and they're like, we need money.
Yeah.
And go get it, whatever it means by any means necessary.
That's it.
Because that's like that Biggie Smalls. Remember Biggie was like, I gotta feed my daughter. Like if I can't get a job, I'm not gonna let my daughter starve. I'm gonna come get it from you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rob you. Be like, hey, you got it.
Just trying to make some money to feed my daughter.
Yeah, exactly. He's got a daughter there.
I was actually watching a doco and there was a guy in American prison who was talking. I think he's doing life sentence for murder, and he said, his mother was in a prostitute. His dad had abandoned him from a young age, and at the age of 15 or 16, he's doing life imprisonment. And they asked him the question, and I'm like, why? What's the reason? He goes, I needed money. I needed to survive. I had nothing to do. And when I went to crime, I felt I was in power. But then he ended up in double homicide, and now he's doing life imprisonment. 300 years. He's never coming out of prison.
What a waste of a life.
Just like that. But people don't understand it's easy to judge him, but look where he started from. His mother was in a prostitute. She was barely around. His dad abandoned him. The guy's got no one.
And you can never know where he would have flourished in a better environment. Maybe he could have been very, very successful, or maybe he could have been, very inspiring.
It's very sad. It's very sad, and it brings me back to like essentially, evolving this podcast. It's very sad where we're headed. I see a lot in my community, man. Addiction is just, it's on a different level, man. Like. They're not moving, man. They're doing drugs and they're drowning and they're collapsing and they're losing their minds and they're depressed, and it's just like, you guys are not moving, man. and they run to drugs even more because to numb that pain.
Yeah. And most of them, I mean, they just try to self-medicate.
That's
you know,
it.
they really do try to self-medicate and think, you know, they can better themselves or, you know, better the problems they have internally because they haven't been guided in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? For example, when people have a very angry upbringing, you know, not everyone is knowledgeable to the point where their families say, you know what, yeah, there must be some issues, so let's get it checked up. But rather they would say, you're just a naughty kid, you're just an angry kid. But really, there's some underlying issues. Maybe there's a chemical imbalance. Maybe, you know, that child is missing something, you know, and needs to be looked into. But unfortunately, people don't know.
Well, I like to think one of the areas that, let's say that kid is 17, 18 now, and they're an adult. Do they have the insight of what they're doing? Because most addiction, you only change because you want to change. No one else could make you
Exactly.
change.
I like that. Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge when it comes to addiction. You don't know how many parents have, I did everything. It's like, well, you know what you need to do? You need to allow him to hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Well, I have. Well, where does he live? At home. Well, that's not rock
get him
bottom.
out.
That's not.
You know, well, what do you think? What's rock bottom? I said, set boundaries in your house. If he doesn't tame to your boundaries, then hold him accountable. You know?
Make him feel responsible.
Yeah, like hold him accountable to his behaviors.
See, there's none of that.
You know?
There's none of that parenting no more, bro.
You know, that is it. Because sometimes,
It's too soft now.
yeah. Sometimes, I don't know what it's like in an Australian household, but I know a lot in the African and the refugees, because their experience is that, for one, you know, a lot of refugees came here for safety.
From wars.
For wars. And they got that. But they wasn't expecting the racism. They wasn't expecting the drugs. They wasn't expecting the government to take their kids if they say they're being, you know, my mom spanked me at home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They wasn't prepared for all that.
Nah.
But they got the safety. They're not going to die. But they may be dying by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
From
that's-
other things.
Yeah, from the other things. And that's the thing that a lot of the parents I've had to speak to is like, you may be African, but your child is African Australian.
And now you think about it, would you sacrifice the 1,000 cuts for the safety? You know? Or would you sacrifice the safety for the 1,000 cuts? It's just, yeah.
Yeah, and so they have to have that insight to say, I want to stop. But once again, if they don't know anything wrong, we got this thing called the cycle of change. Can you pull that up, the cycle of change? And
Can you pull that up, David?
And the
Cycle
individuals,
of change.
individuals are either pre-contemplative stage.
And do you know if the screen is recording, Davey? I don't think it is.
It's okay.
Okay.
And go to
So-
in images once you pull that up. And this is where individuals could be at. Take anyone. Far left. Yeah, that one. And so, you know, in those stages, the pre-contemplation stage is that you don't think anything's wrong.
Okay.
It's like when you're having conversations with people about it, like, nah, man, everything's fine. You
It's
know,
not.
ain't nothing, but they're not.
Look how it starts off. So where does it start from? The top?
At the top, the pre-contemplation.
Yep.
And then it goes to the contemplation stage
Yep.
where you're, okay, now you're saying, yeah, I got a problem. But you're not doing anything about it.
Wow.
You said, I got a problem. You know what I mean?
Preparation.
And then preparation is when you start being intentional. Like, I'm going to at least start measuring the amount of drugs. Because whenever I don't tell people to stop doing drugs. Unless I'm talking to kids.
See?
Unless
Say
I'm
that
talking
again,
to
please.
kids.
Oh, sorry, say that again.
I don't tell people to stop doing drugs.
Yeah.
It's not my job to tell you to stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You want to help them change.
Yeah, it's about change. You know?
Do you think that's a bad approach, coming towards someone and telling them stop drugs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they can't.
Yeah,
Like, it's not
it's
that
as
easy.
See, that's powerful.
Just imagine, what do you love?
Boxing.
Boxing.
If I told you you could never box again.
Oh, we're going to have war, me and you.
You see?
Yeah.
You see?
Wow.
It just doesn't work. But if I say, okay, how about, what does it look like for you to box less? Is that better than not at all?
So taper down rather than cold turkey.
But
You know,
at the
just-
same time, less is what you think is less. If you're boxing every day, what is less to you? Don't let me tell you what less is. You need to tell me what less is for yourself, and then try that. So if you're using substances, let's say you smoking a gram of ice a day. I'm gonna say, you know what? Why don't you just measure it out and see how much you use? Try to use 0.9, 0.8, and see what happens.
Wow. So it's like a step by step.
Yeah,
of
it's step by
course.
step. So let them come to the, like, oh, I can't do that. Okay, you can't. Then, all right, let's look at a different approach. And what's that going to look like?
And that's with pretty much addiction and that, like alcohol and drugs. And which one do you feel like is more of a struggle that you've dealt with? You know, is it been drugs or alcohol that's really severe?
Alcohol is the most dangerous because you can die from detox.
Wow.
If you were drinking alcohol every day and you decide to stop drinking,
You can
cold
die.
turkey, yeah, you can die. You can go.
Some people really, they go through really, really bad withdrawals. Like
Yeah.
the guy, he can't stop shaking.
Oh no, alcohol, you'll have a seizure and you can die.
It's really bad, yeah.
Oh my God.
I was working in the Wellington house and just talking, because one of the houses is a detox place, and we just sit there at dinner. Dude just had a stroke.
Oh my God.
And he said, he started leaning on me. I'm like, bruh. I was like, oh snap! Like, put him in a position in the recovery position. And just let them, because if someone has a seizure, just put them in a recovery position, which is like their legs crossed to the side, and just leave them and hold them there.
Yeah.
Don't try to brace them down.
Yeah,
just
nah.
kind of
You gotta just
let them go through it. But also, it's key that you time it, so you know how long he's down before the ambulance come. Because the
That's
longer you're
wild.
down,
And that's from alcohol.
alcohol
They did say
and GHB.
that, they do say that alcohol is the most serious.
Yes, the detox from.
And people don't realize that.
But the thing is, alcohol is free. Not free, but it's easily accessible.
Yeah.
Whereas other stuff, I don't know. This one client told me they have that synthetic cannabis. Remember they was doing that at one time.
Chronic.
No, the synthetic stuff, the tea.
THC?
No, it was like tea.
Oh,
Yeah,
see?
yeah, yeah.
And they mixed it with formaldehyde or something. But it was like natural. They used to sell out the smoke shops.
Yeah, yeah.
And then one guy was like, I smoke synthetic because I don't want to smoke the real stuff. I'm like, why? He said, because I want to deal with drug dealers.
Whoa.
So when you start dealing with, you got to go find a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to have a relationship.
Yeah.
I was also working with someone that would smoke synthetic. So he would smoke chronic because he wouldn't come up on the drug test. You know? It wouldn't come up.
Yep.
So you can,
Wow.
Yeah, so back to the stages. As you advance and trying to stop, it's a cycle.
It's a constant cycle.
Yeah, because once you go to relapse, once you can say, I'm gonna stop boxing forever,
So
you
you
know what I
feel like
mean?
doing it one day.
You got to do a plan to say, because most people gonna have a relapse because you enjoy it, but
Wow.
but when it's detrimental to your health, you got to go back and reevaluate it and go back and say, what can I do differently? What can I do better to not use?
Then just completely disconnecting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think enough people use enough AA and NA. AA and NA is fantastic.
What is that?
Alcohol Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous.
Wow.
They're communities where people can go and talk about their substances. They're all over the world, bro. You can go online right now and go to a meeting and just talk about your substance use.
Do you think that helps?
Yeah. Because they're like you.
Wow.
I don't think alcoholism is a disease, but I do think it's, an addiction that's very damaging.
It's a very scary addiction, man.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people in communities that are just going, man, downhill from addictions, losing work, losing money.
Yeah, once they lose your job, that's a hint for you.
Yeah, but they can't stop.
They
can't stop.
They don't want to stop.
Yeah.
They don't want to stop. Because they can. People do it every day. Every day people stop using substances and alcohol. But it's hard. It is hard work
To get off that.
because you have to really go.
I believe you need to have a purpose. Some people need a purpose to stop. And we don't have a purpose. You're in trouble, but it's just like you become careless because that's what drugs also do. They make you careless.
Yeah.
And you're just constantly trying to stimulate your brain with substances that aren't good for you.
I had a guy, he literally had 2 tattoos of his kids on his forearms. And that's helped him stop drinking.
Whoa, with his kids.
Because every time he would drink it, he would look at his arm. And that was his motivation.
Wow.
When he got in the car, he had pictures of his kids.
That's a good way
His
to
car,
doing it.
when on his phone, pictures of his kids on the back of his phone, pictures of his kids.
Always reminders.
Always reminder, And it's, he said it's hard but he knows if he uses, he's going to lose his kids.
So he sacrifices.
I want to touch base on a little bit as well on pharmaceuticals. Oof. They are flooded in these areas.
Yeah.
Flooded. And I want you to explain how dangerous they are compared to real drugs. Because they, in my opinion, they're more crazier. Like, for example, Lyrica. I feel is more dangerous than a lot of drugs.
Well, if you use it properly, you have pain management, and I think
I'm talking not pain management. I'm talking just for the high.
Illicit.
Yeah.
Well, if they're going to, yeah. Well, the thing about illicit drugs, and especially like benzos, and Xannies and all those, right? That we're talking about.
Yeah. All them.
Yeah.
Valium.
Yeah, Valium,
Lyrica.
diazepam, they love that.
What's another one?
Like oxys.
Oxys.
Yeah,
And,
and things about those substances is that if you are addicted to them, because they're relatively easy to come off of. Those aren't,
Really?
yeah, more so than ice or heroin, because those are tablets,
Okay.
so they're a bit easier than intravenous drugs, but they can be difficult to come off, but they're not as difficult
Okay.
as those other higher substances.
Which one would you say is the top hardest in drugs to get off?
Personally, I would say heroin.
Wow. I thought it was always ice.
No, I would say heroin only because from what I've experienced and been around people who use heroin, it's one of those. It's a depressant.
Whoa.
So when you do use substances, it's like I don't want to do nothing.
That's it. It's just a
you're
downer.
done. You're done. Yeah, it's a downer. Whereas ice is a stimulant.
upper.
It's a stimulant.
Yeah,
So if you
You're not
use
sleeping.
you use that, you want to do something.
And cocaine?
Same stimulant.
Same stimulant.
Yeah. So you want to do stuff when you're on those substances. So you're active.
Wow.
And that's what they want to tend to do. That's why ICE is so heavily with crime.
Wow.
Heroin users, they're not trying
They're
to do it.
just
They
sitting
harm
in the front.
themselves.
yeah, they may do the crime to get the drugs.
Yeah.
But once they get it, they
That's it.
like, I'm done.
That's like fentanyl, yeah?
Yeah, fentanyl is pretty.
That's massive in America. They're the
Yeah,
zombies.
I think they were cutting coke with fentanyl in here.
Yeah.
And people were just ODing.
Yeah. I remember when I first came here, this dude, when I was working at Yellow Pages, this guy was like, "Oh, we're gonna get some cocaine, man. You wanna come get some with me?" I was like, "Nah, bro, I got family." I was like, "What do you mean go in with you?" He's like, "Yeah, go in with me." I'm like, "Can't you afford it yourself?" He's like, "Mate, it's like $500 a gram." I was like, "Get the."
Yeah.
I was like, "Are you serious?"
How much is it in America? Cheaper?
20, 30, depending on the quality.
Oh my God.
I was like, "Bro, are you serious? $500 for a gram?" He was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Bro, and you gonna share that?"
Now you're paying 400 for a 0.8, not even a gram.
Wow. Wow.
Dangerous drug. Very dangerous, man.
Yeah.
It's a disaster. And to those people out there that are addicted to it, man, I wish them all the best. And I hope for them a recovery, because it's a nightmare, I'm telling you.
Well, most people that's addicted to cocaine are quite wealthy. You got to. You got to have money.
Before it starts
Not
eating
wealthy,
into
not
them.
wealthy, but you got to have money.
It starts to eat from their money, though.
Yeah.
Like I know
That's
people.
when they start moving to ice because it's cheaper.
Like I know people that are only working just to support their cocaine addictions, and they're constantly broke.
That's a good thing.
Because
they could be robbing people.
Yeah. So he's just constantly.
But where
doing
does that
you know,
lead to?
Nowhere until he wants to stop for himself or finds purpose.
But does it lead to more drugs and more crime?
If he's working, he's handling his business, paying his bills. My thing is, if you're not hurting anyone else,
You do you.
do you?
You do you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love that. I love the culture. I love the culture. But that's the truth for me. Like, we're all individuals. Like, God gave you free will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what you want to do with it. Then that's your purpose. When you got to meet your maker, then you have that conversation then.
Yeah.
But he gave you free will, so your free will is to do what you want.
Yeah.
And my thing is, if you're not hurting anybody and handling your business, I'm cool with you. I don't care what you do.
Yeah.
But once the first time you hurt someone or put someone else in danger, that's when I'm like, and that's why I started working with young people, because these young people, they're dangerous to the community, because, and that's what parents don't understand. When you're raising these children, inappropriately, you're actually saying to the community that I don't really want your safety. I don't want the community to be safe, because it's your responsibility as a parent to have a young person that's active, giving back to the culture, giving back to society. You know, whether, you know, as you said, in the cog of the wheel, just working a 9 to 5, that's their choice. But they can always be more.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I always try to go back. The first thing I always say, what's your motivation? What do you want?
Look at the way
back to what you said. Like, what do you want in life?
Yeah.
You can do anything you want. Don't think you can't. But it comes with hard work.
Wow.
You know? And they don't know what hard work is because no one's ever showed them or pushed them or showed them.
The youth, the young and the upbringing and like they've never gotten love from their parents. So when you don't get love from your parents, you seek it elsewhere.
Yes. And that's where you go to gangs and inappropriate individuals
and when you get to gangs, it gets dangerous.
Yes.
That's a site. It's a place where you don't want to be, man.
Like mine. That's right.
You know, crime, and now you're killing, and now you feel power. It goes back to the power, because when you feel powerful, people respect you and they fear you. And now you in a state where I can tell this man what to do. I'm going to rob him. I got a gun. You know, and thank God it's not that wild here compared to America. America is really crazy. But
it's getting pretty bad here too.
Would you say?
It depends. I think it depends on what suburbs you're in. Even in America, it depends on where you're at.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I just seen a video recently of like gay hate crime. Like, you know, there's people that meet up with gay people and then they just bash them, whatever it is. I seen a video recently. The kid, he's got work boots on. He's kicking him in his face constantly, over and over again, bro.
It's not
like
good.
Completely, you know. Like, and it's like, just let him be. Let him do what he wants, you know. If he wants to be gay, he can be gay.
Right.
You know, you don't have to hurt someone for the person that they are at the end of the day. You know, so shit like that's getting pretty hectic.
And would you say from drugs and this, you know, the addiction of it and stuff like that, loneliness comes in? When do we start feeling lonely?
I think it's very crucial because they say the opposite of addiction is connectedness. They had this experiment that this guy did. It's called Rat Park, if you can pull it up. And it says they got all these rats. Can
you put the heat on, please? Thank you, my brother.
They made a park for rats, and they put a rat in there by himself.
That is that? Yeah.
Yeah. I do the images, I think. And they made a... Oh, no, you can go back. They made a park exactly for the rat. All the fun stuff, like to do. Wheels, food, all types of tunnels. And they put him in there by himself. And they gave him water, and they gave him water laced with cocaine.
They love the cocaine.
Love the cocaine.
Wow.
100%.
But when you put other rats in there, now you have friends and community. That rat used less cocaine water. They still used it, but they didn't use it like they were using it before.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, so when individuals are suffering, and if you notice someone in addiction, connect with them. Let them know that they're not alone. You know, I always tell parents, even though your child may be addicted to substances, they still need you. But you have to let them know what that looks like. It may not be coming to the house. It may be like, I'll meet you in the park. We can have a picnic. You know what I mean? And then we go our separate ways. But do still say, I care and I love you and your addiction, but I have to have boundaries to keep myself safe. So you can't come to the house. I can't give you anything. I can give you things that don't have monetary value, like my love, my time, and my appreciation for you, and be there for you.
So if we had, I want to learn for myself, because I sometimes approach people that have addiction in like a very, what would you say, man? It's like a staunch way, like a forced way, where you need to stop, this is bad. It's a bad approach. What's a better approach?
Just that, mate. I'm here for you.
Supporting you.
Just, I see you, you know? And for me, it's all about boundaries. Like, you just say, I'm going to meet up with you. We can have a coffee somewhere, and we can go our separate ways.
And
just be a friend.
Be a friend.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And listen, because they're going to use because they want to use.
Yeah.
Until
but what if they want to stop? Because I personally, I've got a friend that wants to stop. He's been using for the past year. And very, very consistently. I'm talking every day, every day, every second day. And I could see that he wants to stop and he doesn't want to be on. So what I said was, okay, I'm always just letting him be. I'm giving him space. And then recently I spoke to him and I said, you know what? This is now something's got to be done now. It's either I'm going to hostage you which is not a right approach. But what I'm trying to say is, it's either I'm going to take you and maybe, you know, take you somewhere where you're away from this, where we can be together and I can help you, or I'm going to call the helpline, which I did, and I said, what do you recommend I do as a friend? Like, I just want to now take the next step, because it's like you can, especially when it's someone really close to you, it's like you can only let them go and let them fly so much.
Before you get...
Because if he was to turn around to me and say, I don't want to stop, then I'd say, do you do you, boo. But the case is, he wants to stop. So I need to be there now for him to take the next step, because a good word goes a long way.
Yeah.
A good word and a gun goes further.
How do we deal with a situation like this, Orlando?
That situation is a fantastic situation to be in.
Yeah,
because they trust you.
Yeah, I mean,
and they come to you, because he won't be saying this to everyone. So I would say, do you want to stop like abstinence, or do you want to minimize?
No, stop. I know. He doesn't want to be. He doesn't want it in his life completely.
He wants
Then I would say
completely.
If you want to completely stop, then I would say maybe go take him to a detox.
Yeah.
And if he has the means, there's a Bali detox. There's detox in America. There's detox here in Australia.
Yeah.
If he has the means. Now, if you don't have the means,
Because it's just constantly like you're just, you know, seeking that next high, seeking the it never ends.
It never
This is what
ends.
you know, at
It's
the
a
beginning of
serious-
our conversation when I was saying man doesn't have enough. What I mean is, for example, even with drugs mainly, you can never have enough of it. Once you love that high and you constantly seek that high, you want the next hit and the next hit and the next hit until you genuinely say, okay, I'm done. Because the next one is never gonna come.
Yeah.
It's always gonna want another one and another one and another one. It's like a dollar. You always want the next dollar, you know? It's just how it is.
But if he wants to stop,
yeah.
you know, then is it abstinence or not? Like if he's abstinence and you trust him, say come to my house for the week,
Yeah.
and see if he can stop for a week, and try to see what his motivations are.
Yeah.
Why do you want to stop? You know what I mean? Because I would get a whiteboard and say, hey, why do you want to stop? Write it on the board.
Yeah, goals and stuff that motivates
Not
you.
even goals.
Plan.
Just why. Like might be his parents, he's getting older, nieces, nephews, career. You know what I mean? Just start with the fundamentals. Now, once you have the fundamentals, now you can break them down into bite-sized chunks. Why your career? Why your parents? Don't just let's say why do you want to be better for your parents?
Yeah, I get you, man.
Better for
really,
yourself.
really start digging deep into him. So when he does want to go back to those substances, he can go to the board, and hopefully that board would be like reinforce that this is why you said you want to stop. Because when you in that state that you want to use, you're not thinking. We call it a foggy mind. When your mind is foggy, you just want to use.
Yeah.
You don't remember why you want to stop. But if you have something, a whiteboard that you wrote, and you can go to that, that's going to say, okay.
Yeah. Because I've heard writing down your problem is solving half of it.
Exactly. That's it.
Because you know what the problem is and you've written it down. You can't juggle everything in your brain.
No, you got to write it down.
You got to journal. You got to write it down. Whatever it is.
And it's just like a cycle, Orlando. It's just a cycle. It's like they go through a breakup, they feel this pain, they run to substance right away. Like there's no in between. They're not like trying to train it off or go to gym. It's just straight away. There's a problem. To fix that problem, it's drugs. But they don't realize that drugs is just a bandage.
Yeah.
It's not fixing it.
Fix.
Yeah.
It's like 1,000 cuts. It doesn't fix it. And then they get stuck there and they keep going back and back and back, and then they don't stop. Yeah. And it's so sad. It's disappointing. People
And
don't
now,
understand.
and for example, with cocaine, what happens is as you use it, because you know the endorphins that your body releases. Eventually, now what makes you happy in your day-to-day life doesn't excite you anymore. You know, because you've started to now play with your brain, like you've started to play with your emotions.
Yeah, them endorphins and those happy hormones. They start sparking up even like once you know you're gonna get it. Once you know you're gonna get some substance, they are already popping. The oxytocin,
and it's really the only way.
Yep.
You know, it becomes like the only way.
But I will always tell someone, if you can't stop with abstinence, minimize. Measure, just on an average day, measure how much you're using for that whole week.
Wow.
And then
Start.
Then half it. Try to half it.
Okay.
If you can't half it, 3/4 it or a third of it. Like slowly but surely, then use that. Now you're using half a gram for a week. Now let's see if can you cut that doan to a quarter gram and try to,
just taper off.
Taper off, titrate down from it, and see if that works.
Okay.
And if they can't do that, then it's like, yo, bro, you really need to put some work in because
it's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy because this is the easier way, and if you can't do it the easier way, do you want to stop?
Yeah.
And once
back
again,
to the question.
and it goes back to why you're using, because people use for a lot of trauma that they don't even want to share. You know
Don't
what I mean?
want to numb the pain.
Yeah, they want them to pay, but you have to get to the core of that trauma. And sometimes that trauma goes back to, I'm not good enough. You know what I mean? Or my parents don't love me or don't believe in me. I don't believe in myself. Or I have a particular trauma that I might have been some type of abuse, that they don't want to share.
It's all the pain.
Yeah,
It's all the pain.
That's it, just masking the pain. But I will always recommend, if you've never done counseling, to give it a go.
Give it a go.
Give it a go, because what you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
Just like individuals that never been to a detox, just go to a detox and see what it's like.
Yeah.
Because you only know what people have said or what you've seen. But if you go, I think it's, what organization is that does a detox? Why it says it's young people? Odyssey House. Odyssey House is a nice place to go to detox. And there's workers there. You can stay the night. You can stay a week.
Yeah.
Do they admit new patients? Are they? Yeah.
Sometimes the beds are pretty full.
Yeah.
That's why I say if you have the dough, go to a private one because
It's better.
It's chalkers, bro. It's not that many beds in in Victoria. They're all
Can you give me a pen, Mems?
If you wanted to go right now,
Do you know any good private ones?
Nah, not off the top of my head.
Oh, top.
But Odyssey House is a good one. You can just Google, and see what's there. But one of the things is that a lot of the people who use substances have dual diagnosis issues, and that's mental health and AOD. So it's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? But most likely, if you can get them to stop using substances, then you can get to the mental health aspect.
What's AOD?
Alcohol and other drugs.
Okay. Yeah.
So once you can stop using the drugs, now you can focus on the mental health. You can't focus on the mental health if they're on drugs.
I didn't think of it like that, bro. So in order to fix the mental health, you got to first take out the substance.
Of course. Because because it's always just...
Yeah, because the substance is always is going to...
That's what makes you careless, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
Just careless, not caring, just depressed and just over life. You just don't want to, you don't care anymore.
And then when you're feeling like that, you want the high.
Exactly.
So you do the drugs, and it's a cycle.
So now the level of happiness that you're reaching with the drugs is nothing compared to the level of happiness you reach sober on a day-to-day basis, doing something that you really enjoy.
And one of the last thing I'll say is, definitely ask, for you, what's your motivation? What's your why? Why are you here on this planet? What's your purpose?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All of us have a reason.
100%.
So share what's your...
At the moment, I would say in life is to grow this podcast and to teach people and to connect with people. I want people to learn that we all have worries and problems, but we can all solve them. That's my purpose in life right this moment.
Yeah, brother.
Nice.
Straight up.
Yeah,
I have no other... another purpose would be my brother, but... them two go to toe to toe. It's just that I want people out there to just learn and love each other. That we all have problems. We all have a war. We have a psychological war in our brain somewhere. And we can all resolve it. And education is freedom.
Yeah.
What would you say?
What's that? My purpose in life?
Yeah.
Fuck, it's a hard question.
Yeah, what's your why?
I'm just on the spot.
See how important that question is, though.
It is very important. I'd say my purpose in life, just to treat everyone very nicely, respectfully, constantly try to grow, just try to become a better person every day,
What's yours, Davey?
And
Went after Mems.
Answer for this.
Tell me.
Nice.
So I run a video production company, and I feel like my purpose is to give others their purpose, help them find their purpose.
Wow.
Like editors who want to edit, I'll give you all the editing you want. If you want to be a videographer, then I'll make you, you can film. And that's your purpose. So I want to try to help people
beautiful.
fulfill their purposes, and I feel like that's my purpose.
Beautiful.
Appreciate
Shout
that,
out my boy Davey.
Nice.
Shout out to my boy Davey.
Nice.
What's your purpose?
Mine's a little... I've always given it a lot of thought because one of my biggest motivations and what really encouraged me to be the best version of myself is that I get a lot of my energy and passion from my ancestors. You know what I mean? For me, I do what I do for my ancestors.
Black Panther.
Yeah, Black Panthers. You know what I mean? I Pan-Africans.
Yeah.
Like my purpose in life is, because my ancestors had it so hard.
Yeah.
When I come across difficulties, my strength is like, this is nothing compared to what my ancestors been through. Like when I was coming here to Australia and I was really struggling, I was almost like, yo, fuck this, I'm headed back.
Yeah.
I ain't got to deal with this. I can do bad all by myself.
Yeah.
But I said, my ancestors, this is chump change.
Yeah.
To them,
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
It's
This
a
is
different
chump change, what they've been through. And the least I can do is put in the work, and really give back to society and to culture in any way best possible. And
amazing.
and when I came here, I was like, the health industry, especially like my first passion was old people because my grandmother lived till she was in the mid-90s.
Wow.
And I was like, these old people in these aged care facilities aren't being appreciated. And I said, let me just go in there. Plus, people are getting older and their career will be there. And I said, let me go help these old people because they've been doing the work. Like we
Yeah.
exist because of them.
That's
like,
right.
Without them, there's no us.
Yeah.
Like your grandparents, like your great grandparents, like they did the work to
Yeah.
put you in a position to be on this podcast
right.
and help people.
That's right.
Yeah, my grandfather came here in 1970. No English, nothing. Just came here and worked his way out, And now the whole family is here,
Right.
Yeah.
Because of him.
Because of him.
And like every person in your
Yeah.
family, every child should know that grandpa
Yeah.
put the work in. Like you can't even
Yeah.
fathom what he had to go
Exactly.
through coming,
Yeah.
being in this
Yeah,
country,
honestly.
Yeah.
being in this country in 1970.
Yeah, and he's always
And
bragging
Brown?
about it. He's always bragging about it. I promise you.
Yeah.
Not a word of English. Couldn't even pay for a train ticket to go to a certain place,
But they
it was
worked
it was
hard.
very, very hard, but he worked hard. And, he spent, I'd say, maybe 5 or 6 years here by himself to make enough money to now bring my grandmother and my father and my auntie over. And that was it.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
And that young people need to know that.
Yeah.
Every day.
Even like, the movie Life with Eddie Murphy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I watched it again recently. I love that movie. Being in prison for a crime they didn't commit. How often that would have happened back in the days?
Oh.
Or even now.
Nah.
Come on, bro. Even now it happens, And like, what a wasted life. And it's just like, it's not even a wasted life. It's a life taken from someone, for the wrong purpose, for wrong reasoning.
Yes.
Orlando,
Very, very sad.
one piece of advice for all the listeners out there, for the youth and the adults.
Okay. For the youth,
Yep.
chase your passion. Whatever that is, go 100%.
All out.
All out. I'm one of those guys that believe at that age, have one goal and give it 110%. Don't have a backup plan. You don't need
Freaking love it. I
like
you
that.
don't need a
Freaking love
backup
it.
plan until you become an
Just
adult.
do it. Yeah.
Put all eggs all in the
everything.
basket.
All
in.
eggs.
Give 100%. Because if you give 100% and you don't succeed, that's not a problem. It's
You
okay.
gave it your
You
100%.
gave it your all.
You go
Put all the bloody eggs in the basket.
Yeah, all of them in.
Let them all crack.
And as an adult, find what you need to do to take care, to give you the life that you want. You know what I mean? It's okay, because this life is a journey.
It is.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
And
we're like travelers.
yeah, this is Australia. The average life expectancy, I think, is 88.
Yeah.
What page are you on?
Wow.
What chapter are you on?
Well,
What chapter are you on?
I have no idea.
Chapter 28.
Wait, how old are you?
29.
You're on chapter 29.
Wow.
And look how many more chapters you have. Australia, you're going to live to at least 80.
Oh,
at least
man.
88.
You're fueling me up, Orlando. I'm about to flip this table, start going crazy, man. I love it.
So just understand that this life is a journey.
Yeah.
And it takes work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's going to be in phases. These
Yeah.
days you're going to be up and days you're going to be down. But as long as you stay consistent, my key word for my children was consistency. I don't care what you do, just be consistent at it.
And that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
Consistency.
Yeah. And now our new word is discipline.
Discipline. Discipline outpays everything. It pays the bills, man.
Discipline is stronger than motivation.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
motivation, you can be motivated one day and not motivated the next day. But if you're disciplined forever.
Yeah, you do it.
Keep
You
it going.
do it.
Keep going.
And listen to motivational stuff. You know what I mean? Affirmations. Like,
Yeah.
like if you have young nephews and little kids, go get on their timeline. Go through their Instagram and they snap. Be like, hey, jokes and funs that's all fun and games, but what are you interested in? You like basketball? You like skateboarding? You want to be an engineer? That should be on your timeline too. Like, don't just have all jokes and giggles, bruh. Have your passions on them timelines, even for adults. You know what I mean? It's all right to have some fun, but at the same time, like, have videography notes, tips, and things like that. Have all that stuff on your timeline. Don't just have jokes and giggles, bruh, unless you want to be a comedian.
It's very, very hard nowadays to find someone or find families that ask those questions to their children.
No, you gotta get
what they want to do.
You gotta be intentional with your kids, bruh.
Yeah.
If you have kids?
Nah, not yet.
Now, if you once you get kids, nieces and nephews, go grab their phone and be like, "Yo, show me what you're looking at."
Yeah, what are you interested in?
Yeah, let me see what you're looking at.
Yeah, word.
Oh no. Oh, I can't even look at your phone. Then that's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
You're looking at stuff they should have been looking
You know
at.
what I mean?
yeah.
You're not connecting.
Yeah. So
I'm digging that chain, Orlando, man.
Hey, what is sitting on top of Biggie?
Biggie Smalls. What's your favorite song of Biggie?
probably I was gonna say 10 Crack Commandments, but it's the one that he's it's about suicide.
Suicidal thoughts.
Suicidal thoughts. That's the one I like.
That's a good.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's deep.
He was, in my opinion, when he came to lyrics, he was a poet.
Yeah.
He goes him and toe to toe with him and Tupac. Tupac was more direct, but when he came to lyrics, the genius, Biggie Smalls, man. Biggie Smalls was just a different ball game.
Mine is probably KRS-One.
Who's that?
Quick! KRS-One?
Don't know who
Chris
that is.
Parker?
No.
Boogie Down Productions?
Yeah. Not as
The Teacher?
not as thing for us as
Show
Biggie
us.
and Pac.
Chris Parker.
KRS-One. KRS-One. No, that's not him. Try KRS-One. KRS-One. There you go, right there.
So he's the OG, man.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a bigger nose than me.
But you understand.
So he's the OG.
Just a real tip.
Hey, he looks like you a little bit.
Thank you.
Apart from the nose, apart from the nose, he looks like you.
The thing about hip hop is that it started off as conscious. Remember with Public Enemy,
Yeah.
BDP, Eric B. and Rakim, like all those guys was all conscious hip hop. And once America noticed that this music is empowering black people, because back in college we used to wear African medallions, we used to have all that stuff. And then, but finally, for surely, that's when they started bringing that gangster rap on.
Yeah.
And that was all part of the plan to kill black people and put them in jail and
Wow.
flood the market with drugs.
Wow.
And that's why that conscious rap stuff, that's probably you haven't heard of him because he talks about empowering blackness.
Wow.
Exactly. So it's kept on the.
Now it's not like that. Now gangster rap is, I'm going to shoot her, rape her, you hoe.
It's crazy
It's
because
a
if you look at radio, if you harming black folks, you can say it on the radio.
Yeah.
But you can't say nothing about Jewish people on the radio.
Yeah.
You can't say nothing about white people hurting. You can't say nothing about dogs. Like, you can't say none of that. But if it's about black folks, open slather.
That's a disaster.
Very unfortunate.
Orlando, it's been an absolute honor.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you for being on
Appreciate
today.
it.
I think
lovely
this
to meet you.
episode I learnt, the way you deal with people that come to you for addiction, it blew my mind away that it's a journey. It's a slow journey.
Yeah.
See, I come in more of a direct. You need to stop. I'm going to kidnap you. I'm going to put you in the back. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's an absolute honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You might want to check out the movie called Drop Squad.
Job Scott. And if people need a seek, where do you welcome new people? Or
Yeah, you can definitely find me on LinkedIn and reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Yep.
There's Polar Practice.
Yep.
Also,
what's your company's name called?
I don't have a company.
Oh,
name.
yep.
Just hit me up on LinkedIn
Yep.
or a Polar Practice is
Yep.
another
Perfect.
outlet my services to.
Yep.
In those times.
You're doing some amazing stuff, my man. I really
Thanks.
appreciate it. You're a genius. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Orlando.
For being
Thank you
on
very
today.
much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. That was a good episode, man.
Thanks, man.
That was a Don. I'm definitely going to be hitting you up again and getting you on.